Nikki Haley, who has been relentless in attacking Vivek. She actually tweeted out another attack against him today on his foreign policy. And I think for her, it showcases her expertise. We're seeing her rise in the polls the more she attacks Vivek and the more she just really hammers him and showcases that he doesn't have the experience needed on the global stage that she or a Pence or any other of the other nominees running for president.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by national political correspondent Mabinty Quarshie. Mabinty, we've seen an interesting trend with former President Donald Trump's poll numbers at the same time he's facing all of these legal predicaments. What's the pattern that you've noticed?
I think the number one thing is that Trump is the undisputed frontrunner of this race. No matter what happens to him legally, he just continues to rise. I did a story and I looked at his poll numbers compared to his indictments, and every single time he's been indicted, he's seen a bump in his poll numbers and he's seen a bump in his fundraising. Back in March, just around when he faced his first indictment, he was hovering a few points before or under 50%.
Right. So by August, we started to see him be even further ahead of all of the other candidates.
Yes. So by August, he's hovering closer to 60%, and he's now leading his closest rival, Governor Ron Desantis, by nearly 40 percentage points, which is a very big difference for a candidate who's facing 4, legal indictments.
Right, and he's even joked, but before the most recent indictment was handed down, that all he needed was one more indictment to wrap up the race.
He has joked, and I think something that a source pointed out to me once that made me laugh is that at this point, he really might have to shoot someone in the middle of the street in order to lose the nomination.
He said that he could get away with that, so maybe we'll test that theory this time. So now, Governor Ron DeSantis, who's the runner-up for the nomination, has taken a somewhat different approach, and he's had a recent event in his home state that maybe will help him, or maybe not.
So it's been a very rough summer for Governor DeSantis. And so by him taking a moment to step away and focus on his state.
With the hurricane.
Yes, with the hurricane. I think it's shown his leadership and his executive skills because he's been hammered by former President Donald Trump. But right now, the attention is on how he's guiding and leading Florida and keeping them safe during a hurricane. I mean, as the governor of Florida, he's had this experience. This is his, 4th, 5th year of dealing with hurricanes. His work with President Biden is showcasing that despite his differences with the Democrats and with Biden, he's willing to put that aside for the safety of the people who he is in charge of. So I think it's a good look for him. I think it takes a break from the he said, she said parts of the primary race and just puts him back in the spotlight in a way where he's not being trounced by Trump.
So another Republican candidate who seems to be getting hit a lot by the other candidates and maybe getting under their skin a little bit is Vivek Ramaswamy. And in particular, his foreign policy has come into view.
Yeah, I want to say when I think about Vivek, we have to remember he's a political novice. He's never been elected to office. So he's having to learn in real time on the biggest stage running for president. And he's running against people who are extremely experienced. We're talking about former Vice President Mike Pence. We're talking about former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley, who has been relentless in attacking Vivek. She actually tweeted out another attack against him today on his foreign policy. And I think for her, it showcases her expertise. We're seeing her rise in the polls the more she attacks Vivek and the more she just really hammers him and showcases that he doesn't have the experience needed on the global stage that she or a Pence or any other of the other nominees running for president.
So, I mean, there is a case to be made that the two of them were actually the stars of the first Republican debate.
They were the stars, and Nikki Haley is very obviously trying to capitalize off of that. She hasn't stopped attacking Vivek, and Vivek himself is realizing that he does need to deal with this. I wrote a story about him launching a Truth Over Myth website where he's trying to clarify some of the back and forth that's been going on over his foreign policy stances. We'll have to wait and see how much of a bump both of them get. We're seeing, we've seen Vivek rise in the polls. He's surprisingly polling in 3rd spot behind Trump and Ron DeSantis. But we'll have to see what that looks like in 2 weeks, before the second debate.
Neither Ramaswamy nor Haley want to lose themselves in the Republican primary.
No, they're all battling to be the Trump alternative. But again, we can't forget that Trump is still leading heavily. He's not going anywhere, and he'll be here for a while.
He'll be here. We'll see if the second debate is one of the places he'll end up being. But thank you, Mabinty.
Thank you, Jim.
You can read Mabinty and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.